Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Chronically Me podcast. I'm your host, Aimee Esther, and in today's episode, we are talking about fear of the future. If you live chronically ill like me and are looking for more purpose, control, and joy in your life, then you are in the right place. This is the podcast that challenges your thinking around chronic illness so you can live the most amazing life despite extra challenges. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so first I have to say that my pregnant belly is right up at my table and pushing my microphone. So I hope that we have okay audio today because I feel like every time I laugh or breathe, it just moves my table. So hopefully we don't have crazy audio here, but we're going to give this a go today. So last week we talked about patience. So I would recommend watching that one first because I think it's really important to focus on being more patient. This is something, as you know, if you listen to that episode, that I struggle with. And I am not good at being patient. I hope you never think that because I share something with you, it means that I'm perfect at it. It means that I'm working on it and I'm pushing to become better and I'm trying to become better, but I'm definitely still working on all the things we're talking about. I struggle with all of these things as well. So if you have the background on patience, now today we're going to talk about the future because this is something I coach on so much. This is something I also struggle with. The future is scary. What do we do when we don't know what's going to happen? And when we are struggling as someone who lives chronically ill with not knowing what the future is going to hold. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first, let's think about why is the future so scary? Why are we so terrified of the future? I think part of it is that our brains want to prepare for things. Our brains want to be able to take action. Our brains want to be able to do something. And when we can't do something, we worry about it and we stress and we spiral. I think we've all been there. But something could happen in the future or will be happening in the future. And our brains think it's going to be helpful to sit and think about it and to worry about it and to ask ourselves all the questions about it. And what if this and what if that? Our brains think that's useful and it's not at all. How is that at all useful? How is it at all useful to think about something that hasn't happened yet? To think about something that may not even happen, right? I feel like a lot of things I worry about in the future never end up happening. And yeah, I just wasted all this time and energy worrying about it. And our brains want to be able to take action. We want to be able to do something. So we think that thinking about it is doing something and that is going to make us feel better. And it doesn't because we're not actually taking any action. Because guess what? It's impossible to take action if we're not there. It's like if I have a friend call me who lives 100 miles away and she's like, Aimee, I locked my keys in my car. Can you help me with this? And it's like, no, there's nothing I can do because I'm not there with you. I can't actually do anything to help, right? I'm not actually there. When we think about the future and we worry about it, we can't actually do something because we're not in the future. We're not in that moment. We're not there to actually do anything about it. So why is it helpful to worry about it? It's like I could sit and talk to my friend and give her some ideas on the phone. I could maybe call some people that are closer to her that could help her. There's things that I can do, but I can't actually take any action to get her keys out of her car for her. I cannot do that because I'm not there. Now, if I drive there and I show up at her house and I'm there with her, then I can take action and do something. And then if this thing in the future that I'm scared about and worried about actually happens, then I'm there and I can do something about it, right? Like think about this virus that took over the globe in the past few years. It was so scary and unknown. What's going to happen? I don't know. Are we going to be in lockdown forever or is it going to be 2 weeks or whatever? We don't know. But then once it actually happened, it was like, okay, we can do something about this. We can all wear masks. We can stay home if we can. Maybe if your job can be done at home, just do it at home. In the middle of this virus going crazy, we can do something. But when we're thinking about, well, what's going to happen next year? We're not there. We can't do anything about it. We can't help our friend get her keys out of her car because we're not there. We can think about it. We can talk her through it. We can help her through the emotional part of it, or we can send someone else to do it. but we cannot take any action to do it. And it's the same thing with fearing the future and things that haven't happened yet. We can't do anything about it. So why do our brains think it's useful to sit and think about it, right? Like, think about our friend who has her keys locked in her car. Is it more useful for her to sit and talk to me who's 100 miles away? Or is it more useful for her to talk to someone who's close by who could show up and help her, right? And who could show up and be there with her and help her get her keys out of her car? Which one is going to be more useful? The person who's actually there. The person who can actually take action and help her get them out. Now, I know this part is going to sound crazy at first, but just stay with me, okay? Okay. So when I worry about something, I like to go to worst case scenario. Now, sometimes my brain does this automatically. I'm saying like I actually actively go to worst case scenario to help myself feel better. And I'll tell you why that works. But sometimes my brain just does it on its own. And I'm not really consciously thinking about it, but I'm worrying and I'm spiraling. And my brain's like, oh, worst case scenario would be this. I don't have to deal with that. So let me do a little example here. So recently my husband and I were planning a little vacation with some friends. We have a family member who has a lake house that we were able to rent from them and use for the weekend. And we thought, why don't we invite some of our friends and some of their kids to come on this little overnight vacation with us? And our kids will have people to play with. And I'm thinking this will be really fun. And my husband starts thinking about all the worst case scenarios and all the problems that could happen and all the things that could go wrong. And he's like, well, what if these friends don't get along? And what if the kids don't sleep and they keep waking each other up? And what if the bedroom situation doesn't work out? Like the families don't want to all share a bedroom because we only have enough bedrooms for each family to have one room. That's going to be a disaster. And he's thinking about all these things that could go wrong. And I'm thinking about all the things that could be fun about it. I think we definitely need to be realistic when it comes to things. We think things will be better than they are in the future, or we think things will be worse than they are in the future. But I see my husband's brain spiraling, and I realize what he needs is to go to worst case scenario, but not to let his brain spiral in there automatically, but to consciously go to worst case scenario. And so what I did is I said, hey, Josh, well, let's think about this. Let's think about worst case scenario. These two people don't get along. Worst case scenario is the kids don't sleep. Worst case scenario is people aren't happy with their sleeping arrangements. Then we would just leave the next day and not stay 2 nights. Then we would just try to rearrange the sleeping arrangements. Then we would take this action to try to solve the problem. And when we go into this worst case scenario consciously saying, okay, if this actually did happen, then what would we do? It's not as scary because it's like, wait a second, that is not that bad. Like, it's not as scary when you actually go through the scenario. So what I like to do is consciously go to worst case scenario and say, okay, Aimee, if this worst case scenario happened, what would we do about it? Let's just pretend it's already happened. And then what? Because what our brains do is they're like, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if this? And it doesn't actually answer the question. It asks questions, but doesn't answer them. So let's answer the question. If I'm looking for a diagnosis and I'm feeling super sick and I don't know what's wrong with me, and my brain goes to, what if it's cancer? It's like, this is worst case scenario. And normally our brains just spiral and be like, oh, that'd be so terrible. What if it's cancer? What if this and this and this? No, stop and consciously think about that worst case scenario. Stop and say, okay, Aimee, what if it was cancer? Then what? Let's pretend that's already happened. And then what? Oh, okay, well, we'd find an oncologist. Okay, well, we'd probably have to go through chemo, or we'd at least need to learn a lot more about the options for cancer. We would have more information. We would be there and be able to take action. Would it be scary? Would it be hard? Would it be devastating in lots of ways? Yes, but you can then take action because you're then there. It's like my friend calling for help with her keys locked in her car who lives 100 miles away. I'm not that helpful. But if I'm there with her and she locks her keys in the car, wow, now I can be helpful. Now I can know what to do. I have all the information. So if worst case scenario, I have cancer, then yes, it would be really hard, but guess what? We don't need to deal with those emotions right now. Like, why would it make sense for me to worry, what if I had cancer in the future? And then I feel stressed and overwhelmed, and I feel this heaviness, and I just feel awful emotionally when it hasn't even happened yet. Or we could not worry about it now and then feel all those emotions if it actually happened, which again, a lot of these things we worry about don't ever end up happening. But with the situation of us going on our trip with our friends, maybe we'd feel really uncomfortable if our friends don't get along. Maybe we'd feel really bad if our friends' kids didn't sleep well or they woke each other up. Maybe we would just feel really guilty. But why are we feeling that guilt right now? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why do we think that's helpful? Why do we think that worrying about something now is helpful for something that hasn't even happened yet or might not even happen, right? Let's feel the emotions of getting a cancer diagnosis when we get the diagnosis. Let's not feel those right now. Yes, we should prepare for the future. Yes, we should do things that we can do now that make the future easier. We could do things that help our friends get along better on our trip. We could do things that help the kids sleep better on our trip. But that doesn't mean we have to sit and worry about it 24/7, because that doesn't help anything. Because first of all, if it doesn't end up happening, then we're just worrying about something for no reason. We're feeling all these stressful, overwhelming emotions for no reason. And then if it does happen, we're feeling them twice as long. Like, what is the point? What is the point of worrying about anything? Now, I'm not saying it's easy not to worry, because I definitely am a worrier. But it doesn't make sense, right? Like, why do we worry so much about a future that we have no idea what's going to happen? We really don't. We have no clue what it's going to be like. I'm pregnant right now and having a baby in a few months, and my brain's like, oh, I've done this before. I've had a baby before, so I'm sure it'll be exactly like this. No, I have no idea what it's going to be like. So what's the point of me worrying about how I'm going to be sleeping then when I'm not there? I don't know how my baby's sleeping. I don't know what the situation is because I'm not in that situation. So what's the point of worrying about it right now? Even if I've been through a similar situation in the past, it's always going to be different every single time. So it's never going to be useful to worry about something ever. And I go into depth about this in my course, Chronically Me, the course and workbook. If you want help learning how to not think this way about your future, then take the course. It will change your life. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye. Hey friend, do you find value in this podcast but want to take it to the next level? Work with me one-on-one or check out Chronically Me, the course and workbook. This course takes the things you are learning on the podcast and helps you apply them directly to your life. This course dives deeper into changing your thinking, teaching you how the brain works and how to maximize your life with chronic illness. I designed this course as a companion to the podcast. The podcast gives specific, real-world examples, and the course helps you put them into action. If you want personalized one-on-one help from me, I got you. I also offer individual coaching programs where we can talk about the problems you are facing. I'll help you manage your brain and find solutions to nearly every problem that you have. We will walk hand in hand on this journey together. Check the show notes or the video description on YouTube for more information on getting extra help from me. Talk to you soon.